How do I call an external command? As is common in Python, there's a number of ways to do something like this. There's a few older functions that have been around for a while, not necessarily recommended, and some good helper modules with helper functions in them that can make it really easy. In this, we're going to look at the subprocess module, which is the recommended way of calling what we call subprocesses from Python. I'm going to import it as S to save myself some writing. The first helper function we'll look at is simply called call. The call function is going to start an external process, pass some command line arguments, and wait for it to finish. And when it finishes, then you'll continue executing. To call the function, you pass in a list. The first argument for the list is the command, typically in the form of an executable file. And the subsequent items in the list are whatever arguments you want to pass. If you've called processes from the command line in Windows before, you'll be aware that you often need to quote arguments. You need to put quotation marks around if there's a space, it ends in a backslash, there's some complicated rules. And you can avoid a whole lot of this in Python by using subprocess. Because it's a list, each item is known to be distinct, and Python can get the quoting correct for you. So you don't have to worry about that. If you want to call commands that aren't executables, there are a whole lot of commands at the command prompt you can use, like dir, like set, that can be very useful but aren't actually executable programs. You can call these as well. At the end, after the list, there's a number of optional parameters. One of these is shell. And if you set shell equals to true, then your command is going to be run as if you'd typed it at the command prompt. This gives you access to functionality like piping. You can redirect to files. You can call multiple commands in one thing. And it's going to do that by passing this into the command prompt itself and bringing back whatever results it comes up with. This can be a security risk. It is possible for certain arguments to interact differently with the shell than you may expect, so we don't enable it by default. But if you trust the input that's going in here, this is a very convenient way to get some advanced functionality. If your script relies on the process succeeding, then you'll want to check the result. And we can check the result very easily with the check call helper function, which is exactly the same as call. It takes the same arguments, takes the same list. You can pass in any of the extra arguments, but it's going to wait for the function to complete. And if the exit code of the function is anything other than 0, it'll throw an exception in the Python script. This is really handy if your program depends on that call succeeding, because if it doesn't, then you want to abort, and so you throw the exception, and if it succeeds, it will just continue quite happily along. Finally, if you need advanced functionality, if you want tighter control, you can use the popen constructor, which is also from the subprocess module. It takes the same arguments again as call and check call, but it returns an object representing the running process. It doesn't wait for it to finish. It's not going to throw any exceptions immediately, but it gives you an object that will let you do things like wait for it to finish, let you communicate to it. You can redirect standard input, standard output if you want to display the output somewhere else. If you want to let the user interact with it via your app, you can poll to see if it's exited yet. You can get the exit code. You can get the output. There's so much you can do with an external process, and the subprocess.popen class is the best way to get to it.